long ago, and in the meantime, we've had folding rock, many thickening rock layers underneath the whole western part of the U.S. due to the subduction of the Pacific under the west coast. And this creates extra rock layer, which makes the magma have to kind of wend its way around. It blocks and buffers the magma upflow. And in fact, if you look at a map, you will see that the continental divide goes right through the Yellowstone caldera. And during the pole shift, the rock layers will be shoved entirely under the caldera. They've stated that when we have the pole shift, or just at that time or just before that time, it will become a normal volcano, like Mount St. Helens, be 100 miles away, etc., to avoid ashfall and the like. Also, they've stated, due to the recent rumbling around, which I've been following closely, it's been very interesting. It's a cluster, a swarm of, I think you have 500 to 1,000 quakes or something within a week, or two, and they're all right there under Yellowstone Lake and kind of moving north a little bit, toward the Norris Basin, and they're very shallow. This means that the rock is shattering, or it may be just water. The seismographs do show harmonic tremor and long period trace. But on the other hand, Yellowstone has also always had a tendency. Back in 2003, there was a nervous time with Yellowstone. They had trees dying and some buffalo were dead, and hot paths where they would melting tennis shoes if people walked down the paths, and that's when that TV series Yellowstone Supervolcano was developed and released. But we didn't have an eruption, and at that time they had harmonic tremors. I have that on record in my website. So it doesn't mean an eruption necessarily, because there is so much water in the area, and water and hot steam can cause harmonic tremor as well as magma.
So the Zetas are telling you then that specifically there could be an eruption there, but it won't be a catastrophic eruption. It'll be something that would be local.
Yes, and like a normal volcano, but at the same time they said that Yellowstone will begin to have evidence of magma instead of just water out of its hot geysers and the like. So it may become slowly become an oozing volcano, and then in the last weeks it will blow like all the other volcanoes around the world. They have said any volcano that has been active within the last 10,000 years should be suspect for eruption during the pole shift.
So we could have a number of volcanoes all erupting at the same time, which of course is going to spread ash across most of the globe. Is that correct?
That's correct, and it will take 25 years to clear. Remember the Jewish Exodus where Moses wandered for 40 years in the valley of the shadow of death? Well, the Mediterranean had an immense number of volcanoes that went off. That was approximately 3,600 years ago, 1628 BC, or so. They don't really know the year, but they said that if you're right at a volcano just downwind from them, it'll take longer. There'll be some parts of the globe that will have sunshine on occasion, even right after the pole shift. So downwind, remember, you have to figure it. It won't. The prevailing westerlies will reestablish, but it won't necessarily be from what you now consider west, because of the 90-degree shift. You should check the maps and read the pole shift section on Zeta Talk for that.
So it'll take a long time for this ash to actually settle. There's going to be a lot of it floating around in the atmosphere.
In the meantime, potatoes are a low-light plant. So is sheep sorrel, which I have growing in my lawn as a weed, and it is very high in vitamin C and will grow in the shade. So get aware, become aware of what grows well in low light. Mushrooms certainly, and you don't have to be without your vitamins or your protein.
Well, we mentioned in our program notes for today's show that on December the 26th of 2004, a massive earthquake in the Indian Ocean caused a colossal tsunami that killed hundreds of thousands of people and devastated 8 countries. Now, during that event, the Earth wobbled. Many scientists today firmly believe that Earth wobbles have caused the extinctions of life on Earth more than once. They have been responsible for massive earthquakes, major volcanic activities, and some say Earth's wobbles have caused the North and the South poles to change places. What's developing these days, Nancy, regarding this Earth wobble, and could we maybe describe what's happening? Could we describe this maybe like what's happening here is like a drunken sailor swaying to and fro? Is this the type of wobble that's happening right now?
Yeah, very good description. Because people have tried to explain things like, they say the wandering poles, where they go and say, so many years ago the North Pole appeared to be over there, and then over here, and it's not the same. It's not all pointing north, and they're confused. And they say, well, maybe what happens? There was a theory that NASA had, that the sun still has, that the sun flips every 11 years, north and south exchange. And this was based on the appearance of sunspots blipping around. It was just a theory. And they sent out a probe called the Ulysses probe. 94, it went by the sun, and yes, north was north and south was south. Then in 2000 and 2001, it went by again, and they were still the same, even though in early 2000, they announced, the poles have flipped. Their own probe proved them wrong. The Zetas have said it is a constant. That's north, this is south. The universe is set up this way, not just the Earth and Mercury, but the sun doesn't flip. And the Earth does not flip. Now what happens is the crust moves, and the core itself kind of realigns to point north and south as the universe is established, the whole solar system. And therefore the crust appears to be at odds with the core and the general magnetic field around the Earth. So that's what's going on, and it's a confusing picture. The Zetas have said those scientists who are insisting that the magnetic field somehow magically just flips or whatever, they're not taking into consideration all the facts and the big picture. Press them with all the facts, and what you usually get is a red-faced person blustering and storming out of the room because they don't want to be faced with all the facts and having to face what's coming in our near future, the pole shift, because it's a very scary thing. Even Zecharia Sitchin, who wrote The 12th Planet and the like, and documented what the ancient Sumerians knew about this passage, makes the statement that it must be 1,000 years out. Ask about this, the Zetas said. He's saying, not in my lifetime. That's what he's saying. It's too scary, and I don't want to think it's going to happen in my lifetime. So the wobble is, in fact, this passing planet, which is now between us and the sun, is pointing its north pole toward us, and all this spewing meteors and fireballs. Every day when the magnetic North Pole comes over the horizon, it's on the surface of the Earth, it gets shoved away by Planet X, the Nibiru, and then as soon as it goes around the other horizon, it's allowed to bounce back. So it's a figure eight that if you were in space looking down at the geographic North Pole, you would see the North Pole forming a figure eight, which we have documented repeatedly since 2004 with an international team of observers.
Well, we've been having a number of strange events occurring here since before Christmas, probably since the latter part of November. Now, down here in Louisiana, for instance, a lot of the plants, which normally wouldn't start blooming until the latter part of February here, are already beginning to bloom here on the 1st of January. We have azalea bushes, for instance, which normally don't bloom until late February or early March, that are already blooming. Is our seasons out of whack?
Yes, and this is because of the wobble, and likewise the weird weather pattern with sudden windstorms and high tides, flowing in. These were predictions by the Zetas, and they were based on, they knew the wobble was coming and would be arriving and would cause all of this. They were the only ones in 1995 who were saying we're going to have these weather changes. Nobody else was saying this. Extreme droughts, extreme deluge, alternating, getting worse, temperature extremes. They